As you can see, we're kind of going through something. Hello, I'm back with both of our guests right now. Do you want to, Matilda? Do you want to introduce our guest to the chat, who's already a huge fan of her?
So this is my daughter. Her name is Virve.
Hi, Virve.
Virve is an Estonian name and it means little sprout. It has a second
Oh,
meaning, which is like a quiver, a shiver, a shimmer, and they use it to describe the northern lights.
oh, cool.
So it's like the quiver of the northern lights. But she is a little butthead, as you can tell. She's 5 months old. She
Five
looks like an Arctic
months.
fox,
Very much.
and she's about as big as she's gonna get. She might get another like pound.
Oh
But
my God,
not,
she's gonna
not
be
really much more
she's
than
gonna
that.
be perma puppy.
Yeah, she is. And you should see pictures of them. Like they can be like 15 years old and still look like little babies.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, very. The chat is saying very chompy. Toir in chat is also saying that my dog is very interested. So I think the dog on screen is starting some sort of intra dog rivalry on the show.
She was sleeping through most of the first part, and I woke her up so that she could go and have a little break while we had a break. And wow, she has woken up.
She's awake now.
Yeah, she's. Do you see a similarity between the plush shark behind me and this?
Uh, yeah. Is it small and pointy?
Yes, so much with the teeth. So she's at the
Moving
point now
on.
where her adult teeth are coming in, so she has two sets of fangs on the bottom to bite me with.
Oh my God, perfect.
Uh-huh.
It optimized.
Yeah, she really is. Once those baby teeth fall out, she'll stop being so bitey, but right now she is maximum bitey.
Hell yeah.
She's teething.
Oh,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just ooh, looks like a nose nibble.
No.
Yeah, oh yeah. She's all about that.
Excellent. Well, while we're still yeah, calming the little sprout down there, it's almost time for your interview. And Shirley, do you want to do
Yes.
the pre-interview tradition before we get started?
Yes. Let's see if I can remember it.
Oh,
But,
do your own thing.
I'll do my own spin.
Mm-hmm.
So with our interview, Folkwise is not just those who you happen to see on screen. There was many of us working together at all hours of the day,
Mhm.
at all hours of the night, unfortunately. Um, and there are those of us who work very hard to internet stock our beautiful guests and find questions that we could ask. So all of our beautiful sleuths have created some our interview questions today. So if you hear a question that you like, or that makes you think, or is just sort of like, yeah, it's a good one, thank the sleuths because we're just asking them.
That's right. That is the yeah. I kind of like that as a catchphrase because we're just asking. But yeah, absolutely. Nice cue. Thanks, Sleuths. It's a good one. Did you just do that, Shirley?
I did that a couple times ago.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. So I'm ready, Matilda. I'm ready to get in this interview. The two of you ready for this interview?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Do
You
it.
ready?
Oh, baby.
Do whatever you
All right.
have to. Yeah. If she wants to answer a question, if she knows the answer, go for it. But yeah, let's get into your interview right now. And I think we're going to start with a kind of general thing. And that is, what does the spinning wheel speak and tell us?
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah, like the
Oh,
one
man.
in your background.
Yeah, I can see one in the
Yeah.
background. Yeah.
Okay, so well, I can answer that more generally and specifically to the one in the background.
Doing both.
The one in the background is it's a Quebec spinning wheel. So people who spin in the U.S. currently tend to call them Canadian production wheels. So you'll
Okay.
hear them called CPWs. They are extremely fast wheels. So that means that so the primary purpose of a spinning wheel is introducing twists to fibers to make yarn. And then a secondary purpose is that it stores those twisted fibers as you go so that it allows you to spin a longer continuous thread. And so that particular spinning wheel, it introduces that twist very quickly because of the ratio between the size of the wheel and the other kind of pulley system in there. I don't want to get too technical, but anyway, the point is that it introduces twists really quickly, which when you're spinning a really fine thread, that allows you to go real fast. Like you produce a lot of yarn really quickly. And so that's why they call it a production wheel. But they're not Canadian production wheels, they're Quebec wheels. They're specific to Quebec. And there are a bunch of features on them that are really, really particular to Quebec. One of the things that's really interesting is they have an iron treadle that looks like an iron trivet. And those were apparently produced in great numbers in Quebec and used in those wheels. And if you look at everything about them, they're for like efficient production and durability. And they were used in a lot of convents and other like institutional situations like women's prisons, things like that. Anywhere where women were institutionalized in large numbers. So the Quebec spinning wheel, you can actually like learn a lot about it from its form. And my family background on my mom's side is all from Quebec. And I'm also close to the border, so it's kind of nice that I have it. But that's, kind of an example of how the spinning wheel speaks and what it tells us. You can look at the form of the spinning wheel, which is like a major focus in my dissertation and a huge obsession of mine, I suppose. What did you call it? You used to say that I'm in the yarn fandom.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thread benders.
Accurate.
Thread bender.
And I'm not so interested in buying yarn. I'm interested in making it. Geez, she is biting me so hard right now.
Yeah, it's a wonderful juxtaposition.
It's a lot. But anyway, so the spinning wheel tells us things through a few different means. One is just kind of the formal features of it, like what I just described, the fact that it's made to be really durable and really efficient. And then when you find out the context in which it was used, it's like, oh, that makes sense, right? And then another is marks of wear. So on a spinning wheel with a wooden treadle where I put my foot, we'll very often have a nice hollow there if it's an old spinning wheel from 100 years of spinners using it. And so my foot will just kind of naturally settle into this place where other people's feet have been. And I'll see marks of wear that let me know things like, oh, this was probably used for flax, for example. If there are really like serious cuts in the hooks on the flyer is the part where that's kind of the business end of the spinning wheel. So that's the part that wheel that you see on there, that's what it's turning is the flyer. And the flyer is the part that's like actually twisting the yarn. And also holds the bobbin, and the bobbin's where the yarn is stored. So anyway, when you see these like big cuts on the flyer, could be used for harsh wool, but very often it means that it was used for linen. So that kind of gives you a clue as to what fibers were being used and what people needed in an area. And anyway, so there's that. And then the other thing that I was looking at is the marks left by the maker. So I was really interested when I was looking at these spinning wheels for my dissertation in Estonia, looking at signs that the maker had. One thing was like looking at their scribing marks, right, for like when they were actually building it. But a big thing for me was looking at places where they innovated. So there were a lot of these that were just, made by, one guy made one spinning wheel and he made it for his wife. Or, a guy made like 6 spinning wheels and they were only for women in the family. Or it could be somebody who was making them as cottage industry and then made, dozens and dozens of them or even hundreds. But when you see these one-off spinning wheels, a lot of the time you'll see really interesting points of innovation. Sometimes they're not very good. And sometimes they're really, really cool. So I saw a lot of these wheels from like the 20s and 30s that people had decided that, wow, like, why don't I, put oil ports in the spinning wheel, which like, it's not hard to oil a spinning wheel constructed in a traditional way. But they started like putting these oil ports in and doing some kind of weird construction of like the moving parts. Hi. Where they would like try to make like a more durable version. And they were using like machined metal parts. And so that kind of indicates like, oh, these guys had more access to metal than these previous makers did, probably, and more access to the tools for machining. I'm going to put her in her pen because she is wild right now. Hold on. Oh, we're done for a little while. You can come back in a minute.
Oh,
She's
pen's right there. Good,
grinning at me. She's so happy
Baby
she
Joe.
just got to bite me that much.
Oh, yeah.
So the end of what I would say is that, you know, my method for looking at these spinning wheels is actually like I was buying old spinning wheels and taking them apart and restoring them. And, you know, seeing all of these things that I wouldn't have seen just from observing them. And then at the same time, I was looking through the ones in the collections of the National Museum in Estonia. And kind of, I was able to learn more about those because I had taken apart others, you know? And so then I was able to kind of get a better sense of like how these things were constructed and what that really means and the kinds of problem solving and decision making that the makers were doing. And then some of them actually had context. And then it was like really great because then I could learn things about, you know, where these things had been and who had been using them. And, you know, but most of them, no, most of the time you don't have any information associated with them. So you just have to look at what the spinning wheel can tell you.
That's excellent. And
Long answer.
Oh, great answer. And also chat said, please get technical. So I think your audience who's watching here wants some technical stuff.
Nice.
I will say that. So you talked about the research about spinning wheels and a little bit about how they were made, how they were used. How you could also, I think, spoke about how they were collected. But I think what we also want to get at is you made a digital archive of spinning wheels in Estonia using Omeka, correct?
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that and how that helped shape some of your conclusions.
You know, I'm super happy that you mentioned that because I just got my workplace started on Omeka.
Oh, cool.
And that's really exciting. Yeah. So we have some digital exhibit materials on our site, but a lot of what we have is like a scanned PDF of a panel.
Okay.
And not like anything interactive. And Omeka was just super fun to work with. So the way that happened was, you know, almost all of my fieldwork happened during the pandemic.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And so, you know, I had all these grand plans and then I was like, well, I guess I'm working with archives and museum collections for a while. And so then I started looking through them and I realized that so the Estonian museum collections are actually all in one big database, which is so great. But it's really hard to search them. So there is like an English language interface, but the search terms all have to be in Estonian. So you better know what you're doing.
Okay.
And then and then you might because Estonian is an inflected language, so there are different case endings for nouns. You should be searching all these different versions of the word. And, you know, you could have a smart search that deals with some of that, but some of these terms are so obscure. And so it becomes really difficult to like actually get through there. And also I found when I was searching, I also looked through the database of Estonian riddles for riddles pertaining to spinning and spinning wheels. And I found that what I had to do was actually search the dialect term. So that's also a thing that you can have a dialect term. And then the other thing is there was a researcher in the 30s and 40s who she was looking at the spinning wheels and she wrote like kind of the only real substantial piece about Estonian spinning and spinning wheels, published it in, I think it was 1942. And it was her master's thesis. And she actually created a subtype for a standard, sort of the most normal type of Estonian spinning wheel. And it goes under that name in the National Museum collection because of her specifically. She's the only one who called it that. No one called it that. It's not the common name for it. And she says that in her thesis. She just does it as like a way to distinguish between types. But then they put all of the things in the collections under that name. And then none of the other museum collections have them under that name. So it becomes very complicated to search. And so I started to think like, you know, all of this is just everywhere. And then also I was finding really cool supplementary materials. Like I found like this wonderful television show called it translates to like workshop, and it was in 1991, so like right around the time of independence from the Soviet Union. That they had this episode that was following, from my research, and I can't say this for sure, but from my research, I think he's the last of the spinning wheel makers.
Oh, cool.
And it's a half an hour in his workshop. It's so cool. And the whole recording's online. The whole thing's online. And so I was able to put that in the database as well. So basically, like, as I was going through these materials, I was like, these are scattered to the four winds. And I know all of these people in the US who are, you know, contemporary spinners who are really into antique spinning wheels, who would be super excited to have access to these materials because they're always looking for things like that.
Yeah.
And as I was going through kind of the history of Estonian spinning wheels, it was surprisingly interesting and exciting. Because if you look at Estonian spinning wheels, the majority of them are like, they're just kind of like a medium size, and like they're not heavily decorated, and they look kind of plain, right? And then you look across the water, you look at Norway, and their spinning wheels have like all these intricate carvings and all this stuff going on, and it's like, it's so exciting to look at the Norwegian spinning wheels. And then the Estonian spinning wheels are like, oh, those are nice, you know, they're elegant, but they're not like unbelievably exciting, you know, you're not seeing this virtuosity on the surface. But then once I started getting into this, I was like, people really would enjoy seeing this, especially these spinners. They would really love it. And wouldn't it be cool if I could make this accessible to them? So I set up a collections database on Omeka. Started out with everything in the museum collection that I could find. And I worked with one of the people at the National Museum to try to pull search records that I wouldn't anticipate. And so we ended up with a nice collection that way. And then I came in like during like the height of the pandemic where everything was all crazy. It wasn't the worst part, but it was pretty intense at the time. And everybody was masked, and you had to be like really careful about everything. But they let me into the research room, which is beautiful, and let me go through a collection of photographs. And normally they only pull like 10 photographs, but the person who worked with me at the museum was like, no, I'll get you them all. And so we ended up going through over 100 photographs that showed spinning wheels. And I was able to like go through and select the ones that I was pretty sure were Estonian, because they do have these like Finno-Ugric collections from these other expeditions. And I didn't want to use something that was like not from Estonia, not like they had like Udmurt spinning wheels, for example, right? And I didn't want to bring in Udmurt wheels. But where there were Estonian diaspora communities that were still building them, I did want to include those. So I have one in the collection from the Black Sea region, for example. Cool. Because there was an Estonian village there. Yeah, and a bunch of them from the Latvian border as well. So anyway, so we got all those photos and looked through them. I came up with something, I think it was like 70 of them, that we ended up having them digitized, which again is like the person at the museum just being super supportive, because normally they charge for that. And got all of those digitized, because a lot of the photos are digitized already in the database, but these weren't, right? So I had already gone through all the ones that were, and then these were the ones where the metadata indicated that they had a spinning wheel in them, and then we had to check, right? Yeah. And so I went through all of those and then pulled together this nice collection, and then built a digital exhibit off of it, and also incorporated some of my own field work into it. And from all that, it helped me to really have a sense of what the Estonian spinning wheels look like, and the typical forms, and kind of the range of what's normal in Estonia. One of the nice things that, oh my gosh, the puppy is just going crazy over there. She just toppled her water bowl while wrestling one of her toys and fell on her back and just popped up like, yeah.
Queen.
I was hearing the shuffling. Oh God, so cute.
Oh yeah. She's being as rambunctious as possible because she knows I'm doing a thing. Once she calms down a little, she'll be back. But okay, so yeah, like, so with spinning wheels, very often, like, they're just like, oh man, they're not really given a lot of credit as like an important artifact. People don't want to study them. People typically don't study them. They're seen as something that doesn't have current relevance. That's one of the things. And they're also like, for people who want to study them, they're a pain in the butt to study because, like, okay, you study vernacular architecture, you can go to a house, you can walk around the house, you can walk inside the house, you can measure it. It's like got this abundance of information, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to study small artifacts, you want to study clothing, you can go to the museum and they'll bring you out whole outfits, they'll bring you out trays of jewelry. It's very easy to sit and study those things.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about large wooden objects, what this means for you as a researcher is you are going to kind of this warehouse area of the collections, right? Now, in a small museum, everything's together. In a big museum, they're probably in some separate spaces, right? And so you're going to this warehouse area and it's cold and it's dark and you're sitting on the ground and you're with your tape measure and your notebook sitting on the ground because it's pointless to try to carry the thing. And also parts might fall off if you carry it. So you kind of have to think about that. And so like studying spinning wheels in a museum is not pleasant compared to a lot of other things. It's actually a lot worse for some other objects. If you want to study old wagons, if you want to study trunks, oh my goodness. The size of a trunk in Estonia is wild. Like when you read like the old, like, you know, Grimm's fairy tales where somebody gets thrown in a trunk or whatever, you know, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Like these things, like, yeah, Dom, you and I could fit in one of these trunks together.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
Whenever someone gets
my.
thrown in a
Super
trunk in a
cramped.
fairy tale, I'm always imagining they're folded in half.
Yeah, no, you could actually you could be in this trunk. Like you couldn't stand up, but you could like sit down in it and you're fine. These trunks are huge. And so if you want to go study trunks, like that's not fun. They're not going to bring them to you in a heated room. And like, and you can't go outside and walk around them. You're in this warehouse. So they're really understudied. So being able to do this digital collection, I thought was like really helpful, and then supplementing it with studying the actual objects in the museum, which unfortunately I didn't get to do as in-depth as I wanted to, again, because of the pandemic. Every time I went, they were like, so, you have half an hour.
Yeah.
And they had 80 spinning wheels in the collection. About 80. I think it was 78.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
man.
you know, I didn't get to do as in-depth a study in person as I wanted. I did an in-depth study of the specific ones I was most interested in. But, you know, I unearthed some really interesting stories through this, particularly this one spinning wheel from the Pakri Islands that was evacuated twice and was heavily damaged in the process and then restored after the restoration of independence of Estonia. So it has like a nice symbolism to it. But yeah, so using Omeka, it allowed me to pull together all of these different records that were scattered all over the place. I spent a ton of time doing translations, which was really complicated because a lot of the parts of the spinning wheel, there are like 20 different dialect terms for them. And I had to figure out all of these words, and they're not in the dictionary. So luckily I had that thesis from the 40s that laid out every dialect term for every one of those pieces. And so I was going through those lists of terms, and of course they're all inflected nouns. So if somebody was making it plural, then it might not necessarily look right to me. So I was having to like really take a lot of time with the translations. But then I was able to, put all those things together and then do some mapping with them, which was really cool. Omeka S allows you to do mapping.
Oh, cool.
And really like Omeka S. If you're like anybody out there who's thinking of using Omeka or doing a digital exhibit, do Omeka S. Tim Tangerlini pointed that out to me. He let me know about Omeka S. And I use Reclaim Hosting to host that. So anyway, it taught me a lot of good skills, and then it allowed me to tell these stories, and you can incorporate YouTube videos into it as well. So I did that with some of my fieldwork videos, and it was a fantastic experience. And now we're doing that with a sled exhibit that we had during December.
Yeah.
It's going to be super cute. But some of these sleds had really complicated steering mechanisms. So we'll be able to incorporate little short videos showing you how the steering mechanism works on them.
It's like people saying like Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in heels, and you're doing everything like in your second language and in a dialect. You know?
Yeah.
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 It's
Yeah, I had a
incredible.
friend helping me with some of the dialect riddles, because some of the some of the riddles, because their sound is super important when you think about spinning wheels.
Oh, sure.
That's also a thing about, how does it speak and what does it tell us?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We can't hear them speak properly in a museum because we can't make them move. Not like that, not quickly, right? You could turn it gently, but you can't sit there and start hitting the treadle. And the spinning wheel makes a ton of noises. Well, those riddles, a lot of the time, are about the noises. So I was having to figure out, oh, this is them actually saying something like vroom vroom or whoosh whoosh or something like that, and not a word I should try to translate from a dialect.
That's wild. I love that.
Yeah,
you like.
Luckily, the main dialect word for spinning wheel is pretty close to the normal standard word.
Sure.
So, like, the standard word is vok, and the dialect term that's most common is ok, with two Ks, OKK.
Right.
So, when I looked in the riddles database, I could just put ok, and it pulled up vok as well. So that was good.
Oh, that's super handy.
Yeah,
That's
it was a
awesome.
lot easier than these like weird lists of parts. And then that unusual term is kaldvok, and then there's pustvok. So they all have ok in them, and so ok would catch everything.
Excellent. Great answer. Great fascinating project. Yeah.
Translating onomatopoeia.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
wild. Yeah. It's like some Cockney rhyming
Yeah.
slang, onomatopoeia, ass, whatever. It's crazy.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's tricky.
Yeah, it's really fun though. Like, when I was looking through those riddles, they revealed an awful lot of how people thought of it. Like, almost always, it's kind of a reference to the spinning wheel kind of being alive. Sometimes it's a ghost. A lot of the time, it was a cow.
Nice.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Or a goat. Goat was really common. And then
Perfect for you.
sometimes the flyer is, the part I said before, it's the business end. It's the thing that's actually doing the spinning.
Yeah.
Has little metal hooks on it. So sometimes it was like a goat with iron teeth, or sometimes it was like a devil dancing on the iron or something like that. Yeah. My favorite one was, the whole riddle is, the ghost in the corner, a girl at its side.
A ghost in the corner, a girl at its side.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah,
Just
I
kind of
developed
like,
that. Yeah, I developed that into like a subchapter of my dissertation.
Oh, cool.
Kind of talking about, like kind of the haunting of the spinning wheel.
Yeah, it sounds like a Agatha Christie novel or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most useful of them maybe is like what has 3 legs on a Sunday and 5 legs on a work day. That's the spinning wheel.
Why is
Spinning
it?
wheel.
Because it has 3 legs, but on a Sunday you don't spin.
Oh, you are the other two. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
the
you're
other
the
two
other two
legs.
legs.
Okay, I can figure that out. I can
Yeah.
figure that out eventually.
Yeah, and I'm kind of loosely translating. It's really more like on a rest day.
Oh, okay.
Because like in a lot of places, you actually don't spin on a Thursday or a Saturday. And that was true of the island that I was on. Thursdays and Saturdays are no good for that.
Awesome. Well, hey, this is kind of this next question is kind of bleeding into that answer, so I think we should like get right to it. But what is practice-led research, and how does it differ from participant observation?
Yeah, okay. So I love practice-led research.
I love
I'm
any
so on
answer that
fire for
starts
this.
with a clap, by the way. I always know I'm in for a good answer.
Okay, so practice-led research, a lot of what you see about practice-led research comes out of actual like arts research. So people who are getting like an MFA or something like that. And if they're supposed to be doing like some sort of actual research, not just producing like finished creative works or whatever, but they're actually supposed to be getting data, right? And the practice-led part is that your personal practice with this like hands-on whatever it is you're doing is actually generating useful data for research. It shouldn't just be a sideline, and it shouldn't just be a proof of concept, but it should actually be yielding data. And then you should have like an idea of like, what is this actually doing in the end? And then the things that you've made, if you've made something, which it's not always making, right? But if you've made something, then the things that you've made actually can be like evidence in a way. They can be data themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it because do you know this concept, tacit knowledge?
That was my follow-up question. Get into it.
Okay, tacit knowledge is usually associated with this author named Polanyi. I probably mispronounced his name. I'm sorry. I'm bad at pronouncing things. But basically the idea is that we know more than we can say. And this is actually like, so it's associated with him. It way the heck predates him. If you look at phenomenology, it's all over the place in phenomenology. But there's this idea that your physical interaction with the world yields information that you can't articulate it very well. You can learn to articulate it, but it's never going to be complete, right? So like if I'm trying to like tell you how to make sourdough bread, right? I can describe the smell of it when I think like that fermentation is really at its peak, but it doesn't really tell you it, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of sitting there going, is that what she was saying? I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are used to doing, like, let's say that you're used to doing this like particular dance move, right? You're trying to teach that to somebody. Like, it's really hard to tell them verbally. You want to show them with your body, right?
Yeah.
And you might even have to, if their stance is wrong or something, you might even have to position them a little bit, help set their arm in the right place or their leg or something if they're not quite getting it. So that's tacit knowledge, that you can't really articulate it well. You kind of can if you try, but you have to be really conscious about it. It's not natural for you to articulate it. You really want to just do the thing and show somebody instead of explaining it. So
I will say, as you were telling me all of this, I can picture hands on a video game controller and how like, I'm just in here like, my thumbs are doing it. Why can't your thumbs do it? But go on.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Yeah. I run into. I'm also thinking like teaching skating, roller skating.
Oh,
like
that's
I've been
true.
running into that a lot as I transition into teaching classes. It's like, how do I just you go, you do the thing.
Yeah.
But it's
Do the thing.
and translating that.
Yeah, my favorite example of this was a friend of mine who was talking about how she was teaching for, I want to say like maybe like an extension service in Oregon. And but anyway, they wanted her to do a remote class. This was way before the pandemic, right? This is when it was kind of unusual to do this. They wanted her to do an online class about permaculture. And she was just so like, I don't even know how to do this. And what she said to me was like, how can I teach them anything if they can't smell my compost?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Accurate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the smell of healthy soil that has happy worms in it, earthworms in it. Like, that's a smell that, like, I can't explain that to somebody, but when I smell that smell, I know that soil is happy. Do you know what I mean? And so,
exactly.
Like, that's where practice is so important. And it's not just participant observation, although I've seen, it like kind of bleeds into it, right? But like, it really is like the things that you're doing and you're producing are part of your actual like data in themselves. And sometimes can be very central to what you're doing. I wouldn't say that my practice was like 100% central, but I would say it's like one of the centers of my work, right? So it's like 50% of it, 50% of the dissertation is centered on my own practice. There was also like, let's see, there's like a term that's like thick participation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So another, I think it was like Michael Jackson, who's not the singer.
The other guy.
Wrote about how, I'm pretty sure it was his article, how he, like, the techniques of the body, right, Mose? The techniques of the body that he learned just through, like, existing with people and doing labor alongside them were the things that he kind of became like habituated to and could draw on later in ways that he couldn't draw on his observations. Just these like habitual motions of this is how you make a fire.
Yeah.
In this culture, then like he could draw on that later because his whole body remembered it. The other thing that some of the really like interesting studies that are really applicable to this idea come out of hoplology, which is the study of like martial practices.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and if you're familiar with Captain Sir Richard Francis Burton, he was like the founder of hoplology. The guy who like I think he like translated the Kama Sutra for the first time. He was an interesting dude. Anyway, so there are some really great works in hoplology that are about this kind of like bodily practice as a real source of data, like your personal bodily experience of things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is he the English translation of the Arabian Nights guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shouts to the Fairy
And just
Tellers
a-
podcast.
Fascinating, weird dude. Like, totally worth looking up. He's a strange dude.
I posted his Wikipedia in chat. Great mustache.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
mustache.
absolutely.
Solid mustache game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, strange dude. I mean, of his era, right?
Yes.
But like, yeah. I used to have a copy of a biography of him sitting on my bookshelf that I just like, I think I got it for free, like in a free pile in Portland, Oregon. And like, I got it because of, you know, the face, right? And he was always staring at me. And it was like years before I realized that you could be a folklorist. But that dude was always like staring at me in my room.
Yeah.
He knew your future. You're staring at you.
Yeah. It's a weird dude.
He's like,
anyway, go on.
Come to me. Come to me, Matilda. You cannot resist.
My eyes are
No.
my eyes are portals
No.
through time.
I will be here for you. You will come to me one day for knowledge. I will hold you in my arms and teach you.
Shirley, you good?
I feel like you've got the like combination of like fascinating yet cursed that I felt from that book.
Yeah,
I think that's a good way of describing the show.
fascinating yet highly cursed.
Yeah.
It's really the best.
same, it's cursed.
Matilda, can I ask you
Hella
one more serious question before we get in some fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, what's it gonna be?
Okay, how does wool production and processing in Estonia intersect with the ecology and handwork traditions that define the nation's past and present identities?
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you, sleuths.
How long did you work on that question?
I think we wrote all of these questions in about an hour and 15 minutes, like all eight of them. Yeah. So, I
Okay,
don't know.
right on.
Yeah.
You're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, well, thank you, sleuths.
I love how you're like really prompting a dissertation length answer.
No, not a whole dissertation length answer.
100% of our
He's
viewers come for the interview.
That is true. That is true.
Okay, so I'll preface this by saying like the thing that I'm most fascinated with is looking at materials.
Yeah.
I love materials. I'm really interested in the production and processing of materials as artistic acts. Now, most people who do that work, I don't think they think of themselves as doing anything artistic, but they have to understand what makes a good material for creative production of later things down the chain in order to produce good materials. There's a writer named David Pye, and he wrote The Nature and Art of Workmanship. And I love this man. Like, he did such wonderful work. And he was also a very skilled woodworker. I highly recommend looking up David Pye if you don't know him. Pye. And so he talks about how he uses the example of English walnut. And he's like, English walnut is crap until somebody with untold generations of workmanship traditions behind them takes that English walnut selects the best parts and then processes it in a way that prepares it to use in fine woodworking. But if you just take that tree, it's nothing. It's nothing. You don't know if you have a good one or a bad one. You don't know the grain. You don't know, is this, maybe it's a great tree for this other project, but not the one you're working on. You just don't know. But when you have somebody who has that workmanship tradition behind them, then there is a whole like body of knowledge that is like really like the, heritage of human craftsmanship, right? It's this whole body of knowledge and skill that allows them to look at that tree and say, yeah, that's the one we should cut. And here's how we work with this to get the best parts in the best possible shape for this particular project. Mm-hmm. So when you look at domesticated animals, this is a whole nother layer, right? So like we're talking about somebody going out into the forest and selecting a tree. Okay, cool. So that's a tree and it's growing and it's doing its thing. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about an animal where so sheep are in a way material culture, but they're also living beings with their own minds and needs and all of this, right? Their own life in the world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So, but they're wearing on their body what we use to make clothing. They're growing it from their body. And that history of workmanship, as David Pye calls it, that is on their body, like it's them, right? They themselves are physical manifestations of untold generations of human selection, selective breeding, right? And husbandry to create the best possible fibers for particular purposes. But it's also mixed with the sheep's own needs, right? So these sheep, they're living out in the environment. Sheep have, I don't know if they have the fewest, but I would think the fewest interventions in their natural lives of any of the livestock. Like we let sheep just kind of do their thing most of the time. They're out grazing, they're doing their thing. You can raise them in a more intensive way, but most sheep are just kind of out grazing, right? Mm-hmm. And so their needs are also reflected in the form of their bodies, right? Like if we were trying to breed them to do something that wasn't appropriate for their environment, then they would die because we do keep them out in the environment. We don't protect them to that extent. We protect them somewhat. We bring them in the winter, but it's minimal, compared to a lot of other animals that are really kept very carefully. So they have to be able to withstand adverse conditions. They have to withstand the weather. They have to grow the wool in a way where it doesn't tangle on their body and hurt their skin. There are all of these considerations. So, and then at the same time, when you think about the history of human and sheep, humans were migrating with sheep with them, right? Yeah. So humans and sheep together were encountering new environments and adapting to them together. So the sheep are changing to adapt to this, colder or rainier or windier environment, or to adapt to living on an island. There are sheep that have developed to eat seaweed. And like you move them to the mainland and you start having to supplement their minerals because they're used to all that iodine in the seaweed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you have some people and they move to an island, thousands of years ago. They bring the sheep with them on the boats. The sheep are on this island. The people are on this island. And everybody's going, wow, it's really damp here. And so the humans are developing a handwork tradition based on the materials that they have, but they're also altering the sheep themselves, these living beings, through selective breeding to get materials that are more appropriate for their needs. And at the same time, the sheep are also evolving to be more appropriate to their environment. So that's the entanglement, right?
Yeah.
That's like kind of the big thing. There's a lot more than that. Like where I was looking, it's mostly on this island where they have coastal grazing. Mm-hmm. And they've done this for, probably thousands of years. We don't really know. But in Estonia, there's a long tradition of grazing sheep and cows in the coastal meadows. And during the transition, when they restored independence after the Soviet Union period, agriculture was a mess. It was just a mess. Mm-hmm. And the economy was a mess. Like basically all the structures that they had for the economy were Soviet structures. Yeah. So they had to reinvent everything. and there was a lot of movement of people, and people couldn't sustain their lifestyle, and agriculture had already been messed up through collectivization anyway, so it was all different kinds of mess, right?
Mhm.
And those coastal meadows weren't being grazed, and the biodiversity tanked. And so when they brought the animals back to the meadows, all of a sudden the animals were keeping the reed beds under control. And when they kept the reed beds under control, then the reeds didn't crowd out everything else. Those reeds get really tall, like way taller than a person, and they crowd out everything. And so then there was like how there are certain species that they look at as like indicators, right, of the health of the environment. So there's this type of toad that they were looking at, natterjack toad, and it just was gone. It was almost entirely gone. And then when they reintroduced grazing through government subsidies, then the toads all came back, and all sorts of other species came back. And now you have these really biodiverse meadows, and the reed beds have receded, and it's because they're grazing these animals year after year. So I was working with a family that do conservation grazing. They get subsidies for it, and people on the island allow them to graze on their land, and that also opens up the view to the sea, so it's better for tourism. And also the tourists absolutely love seeing these shaggy sheep out there. But they're specifically the sheep that are adapted to that environment. So there were genetic studies showing that these sheep go back maybe 3,000 years in that environment specifically. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're very well adapted to that land. So anyway, that's the point, is that like it's not about, here's craft over here and here's ecology over here, and look, they connect with each other. It's about they're moving together through time.
Yeah.
The people, the animals, the craft practices, and the ways of living on the land are all developing together and entangling over time. So I love this author, Tim Ingold, and he talks about that a lot, about these like correspondences. And he talks about things not being like point A and point B that connect, but that they're lines, and the lines are developing together.
Ooh. That was an incredible answer. I loved that.
Yeah.
Especially because like when I read past and present, I did not know it would be like early like domestication of animals past, contemporary histories past and present. And that's a really good way of tying it together.
I mean, aren't some like domesticated sheep like they don't, their wool doesn't have a terminating point? Like some wild sheep would. Like that's partly like, they've been almost bred to have to be sheared.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's most of them now.
That's so cool.
What I was looking at were so they're in the Northern European short-tailed sheep family. They're called Kihnu native sheep. That's the official breed, but there is actually a larger group of sheep called the Estonian native sheep. The Kihnu sheep are the officially recognized Estonian native sheep. And there's a lot of argument over, like, are these the same breed, really? Are they not? Like, the current stance is no, they're not. They're separate. Either way, they have the most, like, archaic genetic markers of all of them. And so these Northern European short-tailed sheep, these are what people have traditionally called, like, primitive sheep, just meaning that they have the earliest characteristics of the sheep. Whoa! We got a little bark over here. I don't know if you can hear that.
I didn't pick up, but I saw your head like
Sheep gets some
shoot
excited.
over.
Yeah, she started barking, and she never barks. I think it's because my partner came out of his room for a minute and she was startled.
Oh, bless up.
Okay. You're okay. Oh, okay. You're okay. Oh, we've got to pick her up. Sorry.
Oh, very good.
There we
She's
go.
coming back,
Oh,
shot.
goodness.
She's coming back, shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she's all excited, or if she's like upset or something, or if she's really sleepy, her ears pin back and she looks like a little seal pup.
Oh,
So cute. That's what she did when I looked over at her. So I was like, okay, I gotta get her. Oh gosh. But anyway, so these Northern European short-tailed sheep, they're like the most archaic breeds, and they will molt. So they do lose their fleece naturally. Not all of them do, because a lot of them have been mixed with other breeds of sheep that don't do that. But you can actually pluck the wool off of them, and that's called rooing, R-O-O. So you roo the sheep.
that's cute.
And yeah, and if you don't roo them, they get what's called the rise. So there's a point where the old wool breaks and the new wool starts to come in. So you can still shear them anyway, but if you don't time it right, then you get all of these short broken fibers from the rise. And sometimes it's kind of like dandruffy stuff called scurf.
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 What? Is that where Rue the Day comes from, or is that a different root?
I don't think so.
I don't think that's how you spell
my
Rue.
neck. That's
Yeah.
wrong. I also got to do some
Okay.
shearing while I was in Estonia, and they shear them totally differently from how they shear them in
that's
the
cool.
US. Yeah, they're really tiny sheep, so they're like kind of like medium-sized dogs or large dogs. I mean, they're way smaller than a really large dog, but so they're really cute. And you actually you put them on the ground and you tie their legs together, and then you put their little head on your lap, and then you shear them.
Oh.
It's very cute. It's very cute, which is good because a lot of the time people shear right when a ewe is about to give birth, and so like putting her down on the ground like that and holding her arguably could be a little gentler. You don't want to cause them problems when they're pregnant, you know? Yeah. But then you can kind of check on them and check the body condition and check the wool and be really careful about it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of sheep shearing on TikTok. For some reason, my FYP thought I'd be into that. It was correct. But it is
That's
interesting,
kinda
like the flipping and this comes off in like a sheet. It's like, damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they weren't taking it off in a sheet anywhere that I really saw in Estonia. They
That's
were mostly
really cool
taking it
looking.
off in smaller portions. So I was doing it with a family that's kind of that's kind of like in between. So they're like they put the sheep on a table, not on the ground, and that's just because the family member who does most of the shearing has back problems, so they don't want him to bend too hard or to have to get on the ground. And he's using a shearing machine though, but they are holding the legs together or tying the legs together, and still doing it on its side like you would traditionally. But the island I was on, it's a woman's job. Women did all the agricultural work because the men were out at sea. It's a maritime culture. So so the women had to do all of that themselves. And so a lot of people will say, well, you know, the Kiknu sheep is a woman's sheep because they're really small and these are not tall women. So it makes a lot of sense to have a smaller sheep for a smaller statured person, which I can attest to. Like a big sheep can be like 200 pounds and pretty tall. So I'm glad to have a tiny one to shear.
Matilda, you want to lightning round some funsie questions?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready.
Let's try. Are you ready? Will you let her be ready? Will you let her be
not
ready?
going to help.
All right, what's the most rewarding part of teaching someone how to spin wool?
Oh my gosh, do you know how hard it is and how emotionally fraught it is to teach someone how to spin wool? No one gets it on the first try. And if they know how to do other things proficiently, other crafts, they're so frustrated and so mad at themselves. Yes, but I can say, so I have a walking wheel. I don't know if you know what that is, or a great wheel. It's, if you can think of like these kind of pioneer exhibits or whatever, the really tall one that doesn't have a treadle and you like stand up next to it and the wheel's like 4 foot diameter. It's really huge.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about at all? Okay, so anyway, that one
You're being very evocative, and I can picture it. But
so you turn the wheel with your hand, and it has a spindle, and you're like kind of pulling off the spindle, and you have to take a step back, and then I don't know. Anyways, it's basically like a waltz. There's 3 steps that you take, and I got to teach someone how to spin on that wheel, and the one that I have is from 1789, and I'll tell you what, teaching someone how to spin on that. Because you're dancing with it. Teaching them how to dance with the spinning wheel from 1789, that's rewarding right
wow.
there. Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, chat has strong opinions about drop spindles. Since you mentioned that.
What's happening?
Drop spindles are the
she's jumping back
devil.
in.
I have a drop spindle somewhere, but I don't think I've made anything decent.
I also like got it when I was like 12, so I don't think I was also dexterily applying myself.
Yeah, teaching people who want to buy crafty wool is such a drain, chat says.
I can tell you what the solution is for it, chat.
What is it?
Yes.
Keep on teaching yourself new techniques constantly, and
nice.
teach yourself techniques that are adjacent to what you're already learning, what you already know. So if you knit, take up crochet, and then take up Tunisian crochet, and then take up nail binding, and do a whole bunch of those things, because you will become habituated to the idea of learning new things. The people that I know who can't change, like the way they knit, for example, are people who mostly do one thing or do only a few things that are very different from one another. But if you just keep forcing yourself to learn a new technique all the time, then you'll start to be able to learn them much more, like, I don't know, fluently, I guess. I saw that when I was in a beginning spinning class in Estonia with the textile students, and like they picked up spinning right away. I've never seen anyone do it. And but they did, like that day, like an hour after they started, they were all spinning, the whole group.
Oh, nice.
And it's because they just learn new techniques all the time. So you have to basically kind of keep yourself off balance. As soon as you let yourself be fully planted, both feet on the ground, then it's harder to be nimble. You need to kind of keep up on one foot a little bit. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
It's like good advice anytime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that for me, I've always tried really hard to like constantly expose myself to the unfamiliar. And that was part of why I went to a place for research that I didn't, get to speak English all the time.
Yeah.
I really wanted to like immerse myself in the unfamiliar because I felt like that's how I would learn best. I think that was true.
I think you did it. Sounds like you did.
Yeah.
Next one. What's the most creative name you've ever given a rabbit?
Oh gosh, Bienvenue probably.
Bienvenue.
Bienvenue. Oh, sweet Bienvenue. So he's named after do you know Les Miserables fairly well?
Oh yeah, I was Enjolras my senior year of high school.
Do you remember the priest in the beginning?
Oh yes, Bienvenue, of course.
Bienvenue.
Ah, the
Bienvenue,
bishop.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great cut. That's a great deep cut. Why? Next question. Why an artichoke as your tattoo?
Oh my goodness. Hello.
Hello.
Wow, that's a really personal story. Oh my god, no, it's not that personal. But it was kind of a reminder to myself that
I went cold for a second. I'm like, oh no.
It is personal, but it's not like secret personal.
Yeah.
So basically, like I was at that. Any woman turning 30 probably is familiar with this time in your life where you're like, oh, wow, I get to not be in my 20s anymore. And for some people, I think that's kind of a panic. For me, I was like, oh, thank God. Because being a woman in your 20s is horrible. It's awful.
Being in your 20s is bad.
It's bad. It's bad. But like, sorry, I'm going to scoot forward because I'm really far from the mic now. But like when you're in your 20s, and I don't even mean being a woman, but being like perceived as a woman, right? Like it whether or not you identify as such, but like perceived as it by the outside world, it sucks. It's real bad. And like the expectations on you are just shitty, and like there's so much damn pressure, and you're getting all these horrible messages. And I feel like, you get different horrible messages as you get older, but there's a certain type of pressure that kind of you can finally kind of free yourself from once you're old enough to start becoming invisible to the people who are like, hey, young lady. So, I
love that voice you made.
You know them. You know them. We all know them.
I know them, but I
know that
did not know they sounded like characters from a Cole Porter musical. Hey there, young lady.
Oh, God. Like I lost a bunch of weight at one point, and some guy was like, hey, you got real skinny lately, didn't ya? You want to go on a date? Literally did that to me at work.
Oh, God.
Gross, right?
God.
So that was what I was freeing myself from when I was turning 30. And right before I turned 30, I think it was when I was 29, I got this. I was living in Portland, and there are artichokes that people plant just to be flowers all over the place in that city. And it's so beautiful. They're so big, right? They're just like these giant flowers, and they're really, really purple. Like this part here is really, really purple. Yeah. And so I thought they were so beautiful and so like loud, and I loved the idea that here's this thing that we value. It's a flower that we eat as a vegetable, right? We don't really totally treat it like what it is. And we only value it when it's not allowed to bloom. And so the idea was that I was saying like, no, I'm gonna bloom. I'll let myself do my thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
And
nice.
it's just a very great striking image you have on you. Also wonderful story, you know what I mean? It's a
This one has
twofer.
a better story.
What go for it.
Do you want it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one is
always.
super interesting. So anybody who knows Pravina knows that she
I
goes to Carnival in Bahia
Uh-huh.
and she brings back all of these ribbons. Did you get those ribbons from her?
At some
Did
point.
you ever get the ribbons?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're blessed at Carnival and it's a candomblé thing. So the different colors are for different loi, right? Different spirit or god.
Mhm.
And anyway, right before I went to Estonia, now when I was leaving the US, it was a hard time. And I was in Estonia for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
It was a hard time. And so she had these ribbons, and I was like, which one do I take to basically like help kind of ease my path going to Estonia, help me to actually like accomplish what I need to accomplish and do okay there, right? And she picked out Ogum for me, who's the warrior and the iron worker.
Yeah.
And which was a surprise for me. That's not what I would have picked for myself. So I take this blue Ogum ribbon and I tie it on this wrist. And Dom, how long do those ribbons tend to last?
Like I don't know. 2 weeks.
How about 4 years?
That's incredible.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I know. I was like, I got on a Zoom with her once and I showed her, and it was as thin as sewing thread for about the last like year and a half.
But still.
As thin as sewing thread. And I showed it to her and I was like, I'm getting a PhD in string. This is not how string works.
Damn. Yeah.
It's not how it works.
Yeah.
And yet it did. It stayed for 4 years. So,
That's so cool.
there's a tattoo artist in Estonia that I was going to in Tallinn. She also did this
Whoa.
whole thing for me. Yeah.
cool.
And also my ear. I don't know if you can see it well.
Whoa,
but
I didn't know. Oh, wow. I haven't seen that.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
wow.
awesome.
I love that one. So anyway, I went to Sylvia and I was like, look, this ribbon, this whole thing, when it fell off when I got the job offer at TAUNY. Like a week
Whoa,
before
oh
I
my
got
God.
the job offer.
There's some real
Wow.
supernatural,
okay.
divine stuff going
So-
on.
Yeah, so I talked to Sylvia and I was like, look, I want to do a thing basically just as it's like a remembrance, but also like a sign of gratitude, right? And I didn't want to be like, oh, let's put Ogum's Veve on me, because that seemed kind of gross, because I'm not
Yeah.
a follower of candomblé, like that's not my heritage, whatever.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to have something that was like, I will never forget the help you gave me, right? And so we took a design that Sylvia had made that was a very traditional Baltic folk symbol, and we combined it with Ogum's Veve. So we put the
that's
two
very cool.
together so that it wasn't just one or the other. And by the way, you can see all the bites and winter skin.
It's normal.
Sorry.
Oh,
Normal.
But anyway, so this is a combo of the two, and it's also hand poked. So that was done with just a needle. This was done with just a needle. It took a bunch of sessions, but yeah, that's what she does. And also, if anybody's thinking about getting a tattoo in their ear, do it hand poked. Like, don't do it with a machine because it's super loud and scary.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, with just a needle, it was very calm. It was like, it took maybe like an hour. It was really quick. And it was just like, I was just laying on my side, and the pain ended up being like, if you get like a sunburn and you like accidentally scratch it a little, but not too bad, that's what it was like. So yeah, do hand poking. But when you get like the really thick lines, don't look at the needle when it's happening, because it does look more like a chisel than a needle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've seen them.
It's a little creepy.
And
It's like, yeah, it's a bunch of them like.
Sorry, I'm not very lightning
cool
round here.
No, you're good. Don't keep going. If you've got, you're gonna be in that room. You got. It's not like you're going to leave the room anytime soon. Like I'm encouraging you to keep spinning off. No, okay. So in that case, I can ask this question in a way that'll set you up. What's your weirdest story from working on a goat farm?
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
What's your weirdest story that you can tell on stream?
No, I feel like I should contextualize this just to say, like, so the reason why I was working on a goat farm was when I was at University of Oregon. I got a place out in the countryside.
Yep.
And I was renting, and right after I rented that place, which was like a long commute to get into town, right after that, one, I fell in love, and he moved in, and two, the price of gas went up to $4 a gallon.
Oh.
All at the same time. And I had been depending on the rural bus.
Yeah.
But because of Tam being there with me, we couldn't go on the bus schedule. He had to get to work at a different time.
Yeah.
So suddenly we were driving my 1999 Ford Ranger every day, and like we could not afford this. And also my rent went up when somebody moved in with me and all this stuff, right? So I suddenly was scrambling for work. And I was out in a rural area, so what there is farm work. So I got a job as a milker on a goat dairy. So we had about 300 goats. We milked about 150 of them twice a day. And it was horrible work. It was also, like, I had to feed all 300 goats at the beginning of my shift and wash down the dairy at the end of my shift. So there was a lot of poop and a lot of flies. And a lot of, like, if you've carried hay bales, you know that you get, like, hay scratch real bad.
Yeah.
And it was a time. And, like, oh, man, the tendinitis from milking. Oh. But, okay, so I had this boss. It was a elderly couple who owned the goat dairy. And the reason why they had it was because they had owned the land, but they bought all these, like, goats and equipment and everything. They had some before, but one of their kids was going to set up a business doing this. And then that kid had a horrible divorce. Mm-hmm. And so they ended up having to take over it because they had sunk all their retirement money in it. So they're like, in their 70s, and like they can't be doing all that hard work. And so it's this elderly couple, and one of them, he had this deadpan voice. And so he would always just like, well, we gotta milk the goats, And so one time, it was like this horrible cold day, like the kind of day where it wasn't that cold, but it was like the kind of cold that gets into your bones. And it just, my hands hurt so much, and I was miserable. It was raining, and just like, getting the goats in and out of the dairy, it was all muddy and horrible. And he comes in with just imagine the clouds opening up and the angels singing and this glowing light surrounding this little packet of foil wrapped banana bread hot out of the oven. And it was just like the nicest, kindest thing in the world. His wife had just made this and pulled it out of the oven. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. It was so nice of him to do this. And he just goes, it's just banana bread.
Shirley, while I get the game up, can you read that last comment from chat? Because I think Matilda's going to want to hear it.
Yes, I shall. So from So Bad It Hurts. Last summer, while visiting my parents and brother on their goat farm, I inadvertently trained one of the young bucks to come to my house every morning for peanuts. My mom definitely appreciated waking up at 6 a.m. to a goat headbutting the door until she'd open it, and the goat would waltz into the house with a peanut bucket.
Oh my gosh. That's so goaty. Yeah. It was strange though. Like, one of the things I learned from the goat farm is that goats may have more openings on their nipples than just the one you expect. So sometimes the milk shoots multiple directions at once.
Oh.
Huh.
There was a barn cat who liked to come in, and she really appreciated it if I shot her in the face with goat milk straight from the tap.
The tap.
From the tap, baby.
That's what that's called.
I mean, okay, never mind.
And then, okay, have you ever been in a place that had, like, bulk foods in the gravity bins where you pull the handle and it comes down? So, like, and then there are also these, like, cereal bars, right? Like, cereal places where you have that and you, like, get your bowl of cereal. It's like this, it was a thing in Portland. Anyway, I can never look at those gravity bins, and particularly the one with Cocoa Puffs, the same way ever again after watching the way that goats do their business.
Oh my God.
And also we came up with like a shorthand for if you cough so hard that you fart really loudly, that's goating, because they do that all freaking day
So
long.
glad there's a word for that.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an experience. It was I wouldn't want to do it again, but oh man, getting to hold baby goats that are hours old is pretty great. Their hooves are soft. They're like little fingernails, and they're warm. And it's so cute.
Nice.
They're also like, give them 2 weeks and they're horrible. They're like trying to climb up you when you're trying to give them water and stuff.
Oh my God.
But super cute. I also like found a goat once when she was giving birth that was unexpected that she was going to birth. They didn't know that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And she was having like a really bad breech birth. And I found her when she was like down and in trouble, and got the farmer out there, and we like managed to like save the baby and her, and everybody was fine. That baby came out and he was like, you've never seen a goat so ripped in your life.
Nice.
He was so swole. It was this little black goat baby, but he was just popping out muscles every which way. I've never seen anything like it.
That's
So
incredible.
of course they kept him.
Love a swole goat. Chat loves your swole goat too. Absolutely.
Yeah. But the thing about them though is like, so there's a disease that goats can get that's like an immune disease, and it's pretty nasty, and you can vaccinate them, I believe. Well, no, can you vaccinate? No, you have to test them. And like you can test them, but you have to test them constantly. And it's really easy for them to get this disease. And so a lot of farms, what they do is they take the babies away immediately, because then they can't catch it through the milk. Mm-hmm. If the mom has that, like they won't get it from their mom, but they can get it through the milk. And but the milk doesn't pass it to people, and whatever. So anyway, so they took the babies the second they came out of the moms. They just take them away. And so we had to take the baby away from that goat. And it was really sad. She was looking to me specifically, because I was holding her head while she was giving birth. And every time she saw me after that, she was like, "Where's my baby?" It was heartbreaking. Yeah. Realities of agriculture, you know? Like one of the things that like I've really learned in the process of talking to farmers so much and hanging out on farms is like people are really emotional about their animals, yet they still do have to slaughter them. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, it never stops being hard. You know, like the people I was working with on Kiknu Island, like they said when they have to slaughter a sheep, it's really like horrifying, but they still have to do it, you know? And, you know, taking the goat babies away, it's always heartbreaking, but they had to do it. So anyway, it is kind of a reality though, that people are, you know, they are emotionally attached to their animals very often, even while they're having to do things that, you know, you couldn't do with a dog. And that's complicated. I think anything about farming is just complicated.
Well, speaking of emotional attachments to animals, if you haven't already clicked watch stream on your end, Matilda, please go for it. But yeah, I guess the question I gotta ask last is, have you ever made a tier list?